By the way. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Abigail's Bookshelf. I'm Abigail, and today we're going to be talking about my 2026 reading goals. So let's get into it. So, first, I have a confession, and I'm going to be really vulnerable with you guys. Hold my hands while I say this. I did not meet my reading goal for 2025. In fact, I missed it by, drumroll please, 3 books. Just three. It was totally achievable. I had 3 books left for like 3 weeks in December, and 1 book a week is so far below my average that I could have done it with like no problem. I usually read 3 books in 1 week, so like I could have done it. I could have met my reading goal of 100 books, but I didn't. The last 2 days of 2025, I was beating myself up so badly about those 3 books. I was like spending so much time and energy plotting which 3 novellas I could get through, if I could get some graphic novels from the library, which, by the way, the library was closed on one of those days. I made this like big plan for finishing a series and blogging it as encouragement. But as the days ticked down, I just made myself stop. I did not want to read anything. I was burnt out from the holidays and from like reading so much over the course of the year. And I was being hard on myself about it for no reason. 97 books is a lot of books. That's an awesome achievement. That's way more than I have done in the past. I don't think I've read that many books since maybe 2020, 2021. But I kept looking at my Storygraph challenge meter and my other reading challenge meters, and all I could see was that tiny sliver of gray that meant I had not done enough.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how dumb that was. I knew that rushing something just to make a score was not going to make me happier. In fact, it had made me quite unhappy overall with how my reading year went to be chasing that really high number. In the final hours of 2025, that frustration with myself made me keep putting books down instead of enjoying them. So I made the executive decision and the really, really hard decision to deliberately fail my 100 book challenge. I did not read a single book until 11 p.m. on 12/31, and I forced myself not to finish that book until after midnight on January 1st. By the way, it was Game Changers by Rachel Reed because, yeah, I watched Heated Rivalry. And we're going to have that conversation another time, but I failed, and I failed on purpose. I felt like I was running a whole marathon and I stopped 5 feet from the finish line. It felt bad and it felt stupid, but I think I needed to feel that. I needed that discomfort to help me come to terms with what I had been doing so far over the course of the year and to think about what I wanted to do going forward. I realized that my metaphor wasn't quite right. It was, instead of forcing myself to stop, it was like pushing myself so hard in the marathon that my body literally just gave up 5 feet from the finish line. I had overdone it. This was the consequence of that. And this was the only way that I was going to learn that lesson. I have been thinking a lot about my reading habits over the past few years. I'm not only somebody who reads more books than anyone else in my life, but I probably read more books than any of the people in my life, than anybody they know in their lives as well. I've read some really good books over the past few years. Reading has improved my life in so many ways, not the least of which is that it helped me realize I was gay, but I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I was enjoying it very, very rarely. I didn't recall anything at all about most of the books that I read over 2025. I gave away more new purchases than I kept. And I really just like didn't read anything in 2025 that I feel like will mean anything to me in the long term. And I don't think that's the fault of any book. I think it's my fault because I wasn't giving myself a chance to enjoy them because I was hurrying through trying to reach this goal. I rewatched some of my recap videos and felt really disheartened to see that I was indifferent about most books that I read every month. Not only is that like extremely boring content, but it also made me kind of feel like I was wasting my time a little bit. I was giving so much time to doing something that I didn't like anymore, or that like just gave me so few rewards. When in the I knew that it was capable of giving me reward. Like it's all very frustrating. So over the past month, I've been thinking about what I should change. And this video is about what I'm going to change. Starting off with my numerical reading challenge goal. This year, I'm setting myself a goal of 52 books, which is one book per week will like make me meet that goal. I think this is not only extremely achievable for me, but I most likely will go over it. But that's kind of like what the point is because this reading challenge, this reading year is not about reading as much as possible, but about being more intentional in my reading experience. And so the actual like outcome of this goal is not the 52 books. So that's just a kind of like low bar for me to meet. But like the goal is more my experience, which I'm about to get into right now. So, first goal is to slow down. I'm not going to cram in books that I don't want to read just to get a higher score. Again, that's the reason the number is low is so that I don't catch myself like trying to hurry. I spent a lot of time reading like novellas I was not interested in, listening to audiobooks on fast speed while I was playing The Sims, hurrying through things instead of paying attention to them, reading stuff that like I didn't like just to fulfill a prompt. Last year I did 3 reading challenges. The first one was the 100 book challenge from my local library, which had 100 individual prompts. I think I ended up meeting like 76 of them. I wasn't anticipating being able to actually accomplish that challenge because that would mean every single book that I read had to have been like assigned to a prompt. And that's just like not realistic for me. I'm not going to read every single thing based on a prompt. So I didn't anticipate being able to meet that one, but I still caught myself being like, oh, well, I could get higher. I could get higher. I could get higher if I would just read, the stuff that I don't want to read. I also did Pop Sugar, and I think I got all but maybe like 2 or 3 prompts on that one. And I did Book Riot, and I think I missed like 2 on that one too. So that's a lot of prompts. That's probably like 150 prompts, maybe more than that, probably closer to like 200 prompts. So it was like just like I was setting myself up for failure by not like picking something achievable. I don't know. So all of that just created all this pressure in my mind of like this book has to serve a purpose and this book has to like I have to this prompt and meet this prompt and this, and it was just like I was spending way too much mental effort on figuring out how to meet the prompts than I was like enjoying books or picking books I wanted to read. That's stupid. I'm not doing that next year. Next goal, tied into that, reading more intentionally. I want to read what I'm interested in, what I like want to be able to think about what I'm reading. I want to engage with it in some way. I plan to read a lot of library books. So I'm still workshopping how I like want to actually engage with what I'm reading because traditionally I like to write in books. I'm a very like tactile visual person. I like to highlight, I like to take notes, I like to do sticky notes. And I can do sticky notes in a library but like or a library book, but I can't like highlight or write in it. And so I'm trying to like workshop some ideas about how I want to engage with books. If you have any ideas, please put them in the comments. I would love to hear them. Thinking about maybe doing a journal and then like writing entries for them possibly. I've tried that in the past and it hasn't really been super successful for me, but this is about turning a new leaf. So maybe I can make it successful for me. I don't know. I've also thought about keeping a log in my Notion or maybe just like putting entries in a Google Doc. I don't know. I have no clue how I'm going to do that. I should figure it out though, because I've already read 2 books. It is January 2nd. Again, I read Heated Rivalry. Okay, I read the first 2 books. They're short. There's not a lot of thinking going on, but hey, it was fun. Okay, that's not the point of this video. next the next goal is I'm on a book buying ban. Books are expensive. I am broke and I'm sick of unhauling expensive books that I never read or like didn't like spending money on stuff that I don't like. And then I might have to move this year. And if I can reduce the number of books that I have to carry up three flights of stairs, I am going to do that. Moving into this apartment was the worst experience of my life. I'm not interested in making things harder for myself going forward. So, book buying ban. I want to use the library more. Also, as a side note, I emailed my library a couple of weeks ago and I asked them if there's any way that they could tell me how much money I've saved by using the library. And they told me that I had saved over $2,000 checking out items from the library this year, which that's crazy. And not only were they like so excited to tell me that information, I it was so cute. I highly recommend you email your library and ask them how much money you've saved. They love that. Like just ask them questions. Any questions you have, just send them an email. They love answering them. It's I started doing that because I'm in library school at the moment. And then I was like, hey, this is actually like a lot of fun and is way more helpful for me than like, trying to do any of this myself. And so I just email them asking questions all the time and they love it. I'm banning myself from buying books until June. And in the meantime, I will be setting aside a small amount of money each month to save up for a mini haul in the summer as like a little treat for having been so brave. So I have found though that when I like stop doing something, I don't actually need it as much as I thought. Like when I delete my Instagram for a couple of months and I get back on it, I'm like, why am I on here? This is stupid. So I've had that experience also with buying books. This year I put myself on like a kind of book buying ban. It started out at the beginning of the year. I didn't do awesome on it, but by the middle of the year, I started using the library more, and I just like was not buying books very much. And I found that like when I did, well, I was like, oh, well, I haven't bought a book in a while. I'm gonna go to the bookstore and buy a book, like let myself buy books. I would buy like one because I just like was like, oh, I could get this from the library or like, I read it and it was okay, but I've already read it, so why did I have to buy it? And like it just was like it was like disconnecting some wires in my brain that consumerism and capitalism had formed. And I was like, I actually don't need to buy this stuff. I can just, like, so I'm hoping that happens again. But I know there's going to be stuff coming out this year that I'm going to want to read and I'm going to want to buy. So I will be banning myself, being very intentional about my purchases, spending a lot more time at the library. My next kind of goal is to get more in person recommendations. I'm going to be asking for book recommendations from people that I know in real life and that I trust. I have one person in my life who I frequently ask for book recommendations, and let me tell you, they have never missed one time. Like it shocks me. It shocks me how every single book they recommend to me is like at least a 4-star read, if not enters into my favorite books of all time list. And that's crazy statistics. So I will be asking them for more recommendations this year. I'm also currently reading one that my boss recommended to me. My boss is a English professor, so he has a PhD in English, and amazingly, he has really great taste in books. And I am enjoying this book so much that I gave it to my sister for Christmas because I was like, she would love this book. Yeah, I'm just gonna be asking people in my real life. I recommend that you also do this instead of relying on an algorithm, which is just going to feed you what it wants to sell you or what it thinks you want, or an influencer who, again, is only going to try to sell you something. And that's coming from me. I'm not an influencer, by the way, but I recommended that you stop listening to so many influencers and so many people online about what books you should read. So, just food for thought. That's what I'm going to be doing. Lastly, for my reading challenges this year, I want to focus more on organic discovery. So, again, kind of pulling off the back of the recommendation one, I want to work on the old fashioned ways of finding media, which is like just coming across them in real life. I want to browse the shelves of the library more instead of going in with a list from online and just like doing a grocery shop, like, oh, this one, leave. I want to actually like wander the aisles and check out what's around, read the displays, like, get recommendations from librarians or go into an independent bookstore, get recommendations from a bookseller, all of that kind of stuff. I set this goal deliberately into my nonfiction challenge, which I'll get to in a second. But basically, I want to allow books to find me. Y'all already know I believe in that shit. So I'm just waiting. I'm opening myself up to a wonderful book finding me instead of me spending so much time and energy trying to find a wonderful book. Now, onto the fun part. I have developed a series of seasonal bingo challenges in which I will attempt to get one bingo each season. I picked the prompts or kind of inspired by some past. I like I said, I always am doing challenges. I've been doing challenges for a really long time. So I did pick some of the prompts based on stuff that I'd done in the past and enjoyed from other challenges. Some of the things are just based on my own interests and things that I want to get into this year. Things that I want to be intentional about reading this year. Like anybody else, I can get locked into a groove of reading the same things over and over, the same kind of people over and over. And of course, I'm a human being. I live in the world. I can have preconceived notions about things that I think I'm not going to like or that I'm not going to be able to relate to. So, this challenge will also still hopefully push me to branch out a little bit more, like the challenges in the past have done. Like I said, I usually do Pop Sugar and Book Riot challenges, but I don't think I'm going to do either of them this year. I do like reading challenges. Like I said, they get me out of my groove. I've discovered a lot of really fun favorites from reading a prompt that I didn't think that I would enjoy. So I do I do believe in the benefits of a reading challenge. But Pop Sugar's challenge is like kind of dumb this year. It's kind of always dumb, right? Like I don't know if a real person comes up with those or not, but like they have started. I've been doing them at least since 2017, and they've just really started to feel kind of repetitive to me. There's even some prompts on this year that were on last year, and I'm like did a bot do this? Like what are we doing? So this past year, I found some of their challenges to be a little too restrictive. I usually am somebody that is very imaginative and creative about what book satisfies a prompt. Like, I think there was one that was like a book about a food truck, and I picked a book about a food stall because I was like, that, like, first of all, how do you find a book about a food truck? Second of all, I don't read a lot of contemporary stuff. And my instinct would be that that would be like kind of a contemporary romance sort of setting. I'm not reading that. So I will kind of, I'll fudge stuff. I don't care. But I found them a little bit harder to fudge. And this year, they're also like again getting really specific. Like a character who runs a marathon. No. About the mob. No. About infertility and postpartum. No. And anyway, they have asked me to read one too many fucking sports book. I am so every year there is a sports book on that list, and I'm sick of it. I'm putting my foot down. I'm not reading any more books about sports. I've had it. As far as Book Riot goes, I usually like those because they're very committed to reading diversely and they usually put stuff on there that it's not something that I necessarily would seek out. Like, I'm not saying I don't read books based on this stuff, but it's like a very specific, like, I think this year there's like a book by an intersex person or a book by, and that's just like not necessarily something that I think about when I look for books. I struggled with this also on reading, I think it was maybe the year before last. They had a like books by a deaf author and a blind author, and I struggled not again, this is nothing to do with the prompt itself, but finding books for those I found a little bit challenging, especially because most of those books are nonfiction and I hate memoirs. I never want to read a memoir. I don't care. I can't stand them. Sorry. I'm sorry if that's controversial. That's how I feel. I don't like them. And so it was really hard for me to find books that met that. And mostly just because like authors don't necessarily disclose all of this information that Book Riot's looking for. And so there may be a book that I read that actually was by somebody who's hard of hearing and I had no idea just because like they don't put that on the back flap, like in the author's about section. Same with like intersex or like I don't know. I've just been a little bit cagey about. They also one year had a prompt that was like about a closed practice, and I'm like, so why am I? If it's closed, how I shouldn't be reading about? I don't know. It's just. I feel like in their attempts to encourage people to read diversely, they they just kind of go about it a little weird. And what's also annoyed me a little bit about Bookright is they've started paywalling a lot of their articles, and so all of their articles where they're giving you suggestions are paywalled. So that's another thing. So I don't think I'll be doing that this year. Again, the importance of reading diversely and reading from authors that are diverse is hugely, hugely important, and it's something that I actively do. However, I feel like it's more important to look to like organically to put yourself into situations where you're finding those books organically and not like trying to scour the internet looking for that stuff. Because again, like algorithms are specific, authors don't necessarily disclose personal information about themselves, and like especially with like this outing stuff that's going on with like heated rivalry and like Heartstopper and like everything that's happened with Becky Albertalli in the past, I just like don't necessarily I want you to read diversely. I don't want you to like dig into an author's identity, if that makes sense. I think that's it. That's the problem. The problem is that they're asking me to read based on an author's identity and not based on that subject's inclusion in a piece of fiction. So if it had been like read a book about an intersex character, that would make me feel more comfortable than like you're just like reading someone because they're like I don't know. I may be sounding stupid and crazy, but anyway, that's how I feel. I know I'm not really enjoying. I feel like I've evolved past needing book riot's prompts, and so I will not be reading. Also, they did include a sports book, and I'm not reading a sports book. I'm not reading romance either. Sorry, I don't care who wrote it. I'm not reading romance. I'm done. I don't have the energy. I'm tired. Girl, give me a break. So, my challenge is I developed for myself. They're not meant to be hard. They're not really meant to be a challenge per se, but they are meant to help me get outside of my box a little bit, try new things, or merely just like give me a little box to check as I read. Do not underestimate the power of giving yourself a little sticker. Okay? It makes me feel alive. Just to like give you a taste, we're going to start with winter. Some of the prompts on that one: a book that made you cry, a book with an immigrant or a refugee main character, a loved one's favorite book, again, going back to recommendations, a book by an author from Oceania, a book over 600 pages. So, like, this is the kind of stuff that, again, it's not meant to be very challenging, but it is meant to kind of push me outside of my box a little bit. A couple of years ago, I think it maybe even 2020, I developed a global reading challenge, and so that's like kind of where the author from Oceania came from, because I found that challenge to be so much fun. It was very hard to find books from certain regions, but it was really good for my geography knowledge. I read some books that I loved, some like really underground stuff, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's the kind of challenge that I want, where I'm kind of making myself work a little bit harder to find certain books, but also not killing myself trying to read everything to a prompt or a really hard prompt. So they're meant to give you a little wiggle room. They're meant to encourage you to read something a little different. That's all. I have, like I said, set them seasonally. I'm a seasonal person. I enjoy watching things change. I also find I'm more motivated to completing a goal when my timeline is condensed 4 months instead of 12 months. And so that just works better for me. I can reevaluate or restart or even like up the challenge at the end of that season. And it just helps me to have an end in sight, pace myself by the seasons. It allows me also to kind of like honor where I am in the season, like while I'm trying to achieve a goal or like get to a certain place. So, like for example, winter is naturally stiller and chiller and quieter, and so I can be that too, and I can read that way and feel more in tune with like nature and the cycles of life. I listen. I read Wintering. It changed my brain. So anyway, that's why they're set up this way. And like I said, the goal for these is to read 4 books. If you read 4 books in a season, you can do this goal. You can get a bingo with just 4. So I hope that it can be a challenge. because you have the prompts, but it can also kind of like meet you where you are and like how much time you have and how much you read. And if you want to like focus on going slow, you can just read 4. If you want to focus on, if you want to try to read more, you can do the whole thing, like whatever. If you read 4, yay, you have a bingo. If you read 8, yay, you have 2 bingos. If you read 16, blackout, you have a bingo. So again, it's meant to be feasible. It's meant to be easily achievable. If you read 16, that's 1 book a week, which is what I'm kind of going for. So there you go. You can be a little bit more strategic about your choices. I often find that I have stuff that overlaps, especially because some of these are so general and so vague. You get to be a little bit more strategic about what you're doing, and you can be creative about which book satisfies which prompt. Have fun. If you'd like to play along, I've listed a Google Drive folder down below where you can get all of the materials, the book bingo cards for each season, as well as like I also made like a sheet where you can kind of write out everything if you want. And my nonfiction challenge will also be in there, which I'll get to next. So if you do, please tag me on Instagram. I've developed them so that you can put them in your stories or on your Instagram feed. So if you do that, tag them so I can see them and steal your recommendations. I will be keeping track of these in my journal. I'm trying to like get a little bit into journaling this year and specifically fighting my perfectionism by allowing myself to journal badly. So you can laugh at those if you want, but like, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. So I like made myself a little bingo card. As you can see, I already have one. That's exciting. I'm on my way to a bingo. So that's how I'm gonna keep track. I will also try really hard to also update on Instagram. Maybe make like a little story highlight so that you can keep track if you want. Get my recommendations. But yeah, that's my seasonal bingo. I'm really excited to do these. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And I will probably do like a check-in with you. We'll get to my content goals later, but I might do like a seasonal check-in with you. Like, this is what I read. What did you read? All that fun stuff. Next up, my nonfiction challenge. I told you I like challenges, so I gave myself a lot. So this year, I want to intentionally read more nonfiction. That is a genre I usually stay away from. I've already told you how I feel about memoirs, so maybe you're not surprised. But I do enjoy nonfiction occasionally, and I'm going to enjoy one per month this year. And the kind of goals of this challenge, one, obviously, to learn more. Hey, let's learn more. I love learning. I loved going to school growing up. I love school so much that I have graduated early from every single academic program since high school because I get so excited. I can't pace myself normally. I graduated from high school early. I graduated from college early, and I'm about to finish my master's degree early. I can't help myself. And yes, I am plotting which master's degree I'm going to be getting next because, again, I love school. So sorry. That's part of the impetus of this challenge. I also think not only do I just like genuinely enjoy learning, I think being educated makes me a better writer. Hey, that's crazy. Not only because my brain gets like so big and full of good ideas and good words, but I think it also helps me to like get creative. There's so much out there to know, and that can be overwhelming, but reading as much as possible and learning as much as possible is the only way to fight evil, by the way. Fascists love dumb people. Next goal is to expand my horizons. I've picked topics that are kind of general so I can explore my interests within those subjects, I guess, but also ones that I maybe would normally avoid. For instance, politics, law, and economics. Modern history? No, actually, no, I'm good. Thank you. Science, math, technology. Girl, I'm an English major. I don't. Again, we're confronting our biases. We're getting in there. We're learning new stuff. We're not letting topics intimidate us. We are going to be the most educated girl at the function. On the bingo card, I am also going to include call numbers for these subjects so that you can actually go to the library and go to that particular section and you have the Dewey Decimal subject number. So you can just go find something on the shelf organically. Again, going back to earlier when I said I wanted organic discovery, this is the way we're going to do that. I've given myself call numbers so that I can just find stuff. I can go to those numbers and just look at the shelf and see what interests me and what sounds intriguing. And again, not relying on an algorithm to tell me to read the same fucking four nonfiction books over and over again. I'm not reading The Wager. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Stop. I'm going to go find something else. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. I'm hoping that I can find maybe some like new topics that I'm interested in, get some new ideas flowing, have some fun facts to give out, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about that. I'm actually like probably most excited for this nonfiction challenge. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and getting to like go to the library and like look on the shelf, I think is gonna be really fun too. When I was working in the library, that was like my favorite thing to do was shelf, because I loved just going down the aisles and like putting stuff away and then being like, what's next to it, and like looking at stuff. And I found some great books that way. So really excited about that. Next goal for the nonfiction challenge is again to take my time. I have set myself where I only need to read one nonfiction book per month in order to achieve this goal. So I want to not be afraid of reading something longer or something more dense, or like I want to have time to kind of like discover something and not feel like I have to like rush through or read something short or read something, I want to enjoy things. I want to learn things. And so I'm giving myself as much time as I think I'll need for that process to happen. If I read more than that, awesome. But I will meet my goal just by reading one per month. And I can digest it, I can think about it, I can form my own opinions, I can, absorb information and be smarter. So that's really exciting. Last of my reading goals, because this has gone on far too long. My last part of my reading goals is related to the content that I want to put on this channel. So, content goals for 2026. I don't want to fall into the trap of reading for or trying to like capitalize on current hype. So, honestly, stuff is usually dead faster than I can get a hold in from the library, much less read it and make a video about it. So I'm not going to like, I'm going to try to like train myself not to feel pressure to like catch up to the nearest trend or to read whatever the book that all of the other booktubers are writing about and like all this other kind of stuff. I want to just focus on what I find and not worry about chasing the hype or chasing whatever, Book Talk is mad about now. That's just like not really, it's content I enjoy consuming every now and then, but not necessarily content that I want to make. Part of that also is that like when I have done that in the past, I hated it. See the Enemy reading book. I hated that book. So, I don't want to fill my 2026 reading with stuff that I don't like and am just mad about. That's not fun. Next, I want to work on creating more intentional and thoughtful commentary on what I'm reading, not just a recap of like, what is this book about? Did I like it? Did I not like it? I still want to do some fun shorter stuff, but I want to focus more on developing maybe like slightly more scripted content where I'm like actually making a point, making a connection, rather than just telling you if I liked a book or not and how many stars I would give it. The first installment of that will be the video that I have coming out next week by So Young Park, and about this sort of industry issue with editing and how sequels are created, which is about Snow Globe. So I hope you enjoy that content. That's what I'm going to be focusing on delivering to you this year. In conclusion, for the content section, I just want to say that starting this channel was a big leap for me, because I have always struggled with feeling like I don't have anything to say, or that I don't have a right to say anything. So this has just been like a really big experiment in like fighting perfectionism and feeling like I can say what I want and like my opinions are valued and blah 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 blah. So all that to say, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting, for subscribing, engaging in my content in any way. It means a lot to me, and I'm really excited to make more content in 2026. So if you're not already, please subscribe so that you can see stuff in the future. And yeah, so that's my reading goal for this year. That's the kind of content I want to create, the kind of media I want to consume. and just like the way I'm trying to live my life. Starting in our winter season, I'm really excited you're here. I hope you stick around, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Sorry if that was incoherent.